Hey, I already read this and I'm about to reread it, so I'm gonna be maybe a bit annoyed because I actually hit the wrong button. So yeah, anyways, cheer me up. This is episode 4 of my little story diary thing for you. I hope you have an amazing day because I'm very glad that you are alright after everything that happened. So, yeah, I'm trying to remember what sweet things I said earlier. Because I have to re-say all this now and reread this. So, yay. Oh, Lord. Sorry if I sound a bit annoyed. It's just kind of. Okay. Clear mind, happy mind. Do. Okay. I love you, but I hope everything's alright on your side. Anyways, take 2 of reading this story. Uh, yeah, the story is called The Little Match Girl by Hans Christian Andersen. The most terrible cold it was. It snowed and was nearly quite dark, and evenings and the last evening of the cold year. The darkness there went along the streets, a poor little girl, bareheaded and with naked feet. When she left home, she had slippers on, it is true, but but was the goal? But what was the good of that? There was very large slippers which her mother had inherited and worn. So large they were, the poor little thing lost them as she scuffed across the street because of 2 carriages that rolled by it dreadfully fast. One slipper was nowhere to be found, and the other laid hold by an urchin, and he ran off with it. He thought it would be cheaply for a cradle. He had some day or another should have a child of himself. The little maiden walked on her tiny naked feet, that was quite red and blue from the cold. She carried a quantity of matches in the old apron, and she had a bundle of them in her hands. No one had brought anything of her in her whole life. No one had given her a single farthing. She crept along in terrible, trembling with cold and hunger, a very picture of sorrow, the poor little thing. The flakes of snow covered her long, fair hair, which fell in beautiful curls around her neck. But of that, of course, she never once now thought, from all the windows and candles were gleaming, and it had smelt so delicious of a roast goose. For it was New Year's, yes, of that she thought, and the corner formed by 2 houses, which one advanced more than the other. She sat herself down and crowded together, her little feet she had drawn closer to her, but she grew colder and colder, and had to go home. She did not venture, for she had not sold any matches, and not bring a farthing of money. From her father she would certainly get blown, and at home was too cold. Too cold. For above her she had only a roof. Through the wind whistled, even through the largest cracks were stopped up with straw and rags. Her little hands were almost numbed with cold. Oh, a match might afford her a world of comfort. She'd only dared to get a single one out of the bundle, draw it against the wall, and warm her fingers by it. She drew one out, Richard's, well, rather, some fancy word. How it blazed, how it burned. It was warm, bright flames like a candle. As she held it over, as she held her hand over it, it was a wonderful light. It seemed really to be a little maiden. It was really, yeah, it really seemed to the really little maiden as though she was sitting before a large iron stove with burnished brass feet and a brass ornament on top. The fire burned with such blessing and influence. It was warm so delightfully the little girl had already stretched out her feet to warm them too, but the flame went out. The stove vanished, and she had only remained with a burnt match in her hand. She rubbed another against the wall. It burned brightly, and where the light fell on the wall became transparent like a veil, so that she could see into the room. On the table was spread a snow tablecloth. Upon it splendid porcelain service, and a roast goose was steaming famously with stuffing of an apple and a dried plum. And what was still more capital to behold was a goose hopped down from a dish, reeled about on the floor with a knife and fork in its breast, till it came up to the poor little girl, when the match went out, and nothing but a thick, cold, damp wall was left behind. She lit another match, and now she was sitting under the most magnificent Christmas tree. It was larger and more decorated than the ones which she had seen through the glass doors in the rich merchant house. Through the lights were burning on the green branches gaily colored pictures, such as she had seen in the window shop, looked down upon her. The little maiden stretched out her hands towards them, and the match went out. The light of the Christmas tree rose higher and higher. She saw them now as the stars in the heaven. One fell down and formed a long trail of fire. "Someone is dead," said the little girl, for her grandmother, only person that had ever loved her, who was now no more, had told her that when the stars falls, a soul ascends to God. She drew another match against the wall. Again, light, and it was illustrious. There stood an old grandmother, so bright and radiant, so mild, and with such expression of love. "Grandmother," cried the little one, "oh, take me with you. You go away when the match burned out. You vanished like a warm stove, like a delicious roast goose, and a magnificent Christmas tree." She rubbed a whole bunch of matches quickly against the wall, for she wanted to be quite sure of keeping her grandmother near. The matches gave such a brilliant light that was brighter than at noonday. Never formerly had the grandmother been so beautiful, and so tall. She took the little maiden on her arms, and both flew into the brightness and joy, so high, so very high, and then above was nearly cold, nor hunger, nor anxiety. They were with God. But in the corner, at the cold hour of dawn, sat the poor little girl, with rosy cheeks, with a smiling mouth, leaning against the wall, frozen to death on the last evening of the cold old year. Stiff and stark sat the child there, with her matches, of which one bundle was burnt. She wanted to warm herself, said the people. No one had the slightest suspicion of what beautiful things she had seen. No one even dreamed of the splendor in which her grandmother she had entered on the joy of a new year. Okay, story's over. Little cute one. This person that read those other stories, like the Ugly Duckling I read. Anyways, I love you. I hope you really enjoy these, 'cause I enjoy making them for you. I always get really happy that I know it makes you smile and stuff. So, stay tuned for next episode whenever I make that. I love you, hon, and have a great day. Or night, whenever time you're hearing this.